It's the Sheriff Podcast, baby. Yeah. It's the Sheriff, AHL Man of the Year. 500 pro fights in his career. Got the record for most ice fights in a season. You fought the Sheriff, lucky you're still breathing. It's the Sheriff, AHL Man of the Year. 500 pro fights in his career. Got the record for most ice fights in a season. You fought the Sheriff, lucky you. We filmed the pod today. You listening tomorrow. The heavyweight champ, yeah, Sean McMahon. Sheriff, 10-year pro, yeah, he holding it down. Big man playing it right, thumbs up to the crowd. Let's go. Rookie season, suited up, most tilts in the A, man. Sheriff badge on the bucket, heavy can play, man. Podcast trending, thanks for rocking with us, bro. Lived out his dream, yeah, he played in the show. Danny Grange managing, helping us gain.
Welcome everybody to an exclusive edition of the Sheriff. Boy, oh boy, do I ever have a treat for you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there are very few players that can actually electrify a crowd without scoring a goal. My guest tonight had an incredible support system led by his father, Gary, and through this time, he had a dynamic career, and I'm going to introduce him right now. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, all over the world, I would like to introduce to you my guest tonight. He hails from the Flying Dust First Nation. At 5'10", 220 pounds, he is a heavyweight. He was an amateur boxer, hunter, and fisherman growing up. He is the big ticket of Quebec's notorious LNAH. He made his NHL debut in 2007. A massive 348 professional hockey fights, the toughest player in the 1982 age group, and the most entertaining hockey fighter of all time, my friend, Mr. John Nasty Mirasty.
How's it going, brother? Thank you.
You gotta let me apologize for the long intro, buddy, but you got so many things behind your name, Johnny, that I had to pick and choose of what I was gonna say, brother.
Well, I really like the weight category there, 220 pounds. I wish.
Hey, man, when you walked in here, like I know, like my secret is to have medium t-shirts. It makes us look nice and strong,
yeah,
and fit. So I don't know if it's the same for you, buddy, but you looked really good shape when you walked in. So I thought I'd put 220.
I appreciate it. I like it.
So Johnny, I have a style that I like to have. You know, we only bring really big characters on this show. So I like to let the viewers and listeners know how these big characters came about. So I like to talk about the beginnings. I like to talk about where my guests grew up. It's very interesting where you grew up, brother. I'm a big fan of the culture, and I want to talk about it right now. I'm talking about the Flying Dust First Nation. Now, I first heard about this when I interviewed you and your father, and I was very intrigued. Do you mind telling about home a little bit right now?
Not at all. You know, it's a place that I'm really proud of, and you know, obviously I'm one of the leaders in the community now, and you know, I just try to provide that leadership experience for my people, especially the youth. You know, it's no secret that our youth really struggle nowadays with, you know, all the reconciliation and just stuff like that, the stuff that we've endured in the past. And so for me, it's really important to go out there and achieve big things, to not only for myself but for my kids, for my family, for my community members, for the youth that follow me, just to show them that there's a lot of life out there, and if I can do it, they can do it.
Right on, buddy. Yeah. Man, we clap for each other around here, especially for that. Now, Johnny, like I know that there might be some rules that maybe you can't talk about it, but are you allowed to talk about the position that you're going for right now?
Well, of course. You know, like it's no secret that I always kind of shoot for the top, and you know, I'm just going to be going to a campaign here right away for running for chief of Flying Dust, and you know, I'm very looking forward to that. So, here to give to my people, and like I said, to empower them. You know, and I bring a different type of leadership to the community. You know, I've lived off reserve for quite a while. I've lived in all over the world, in Russia, and you know, New York, and California, Quebec. So I know what it's like, you know, in other parts of the world, and I just want to bring those experiences to my people and watch them succeed.
I wish I lived there. That's unbelievable, buddy. That's unreal. I want to talk about mom and dad a little bit. We've had some pretty similar upbringings, brother. We're both a product of our parents getting divorced at a young age, but we had good relationships within. Do you mind talking about the young Johnny and some of the controversies that you had to go through at that time?
Oh, definitely. Coming from a multicultural family, my mom being, white from California and my dad's native from the reserve, I never really fit in the communities. It was always, when I was in the cities, there was always an Indian, or when I was in the cities, or when I was in the reserve, he's always a white guy. So, it was kind of reverse racism, I guess, for me.
Yes.
But it also toughened me up. My mom played a big role in my life growing up, too. And I don't know if my dad wants to hear this, but I think she's the one that taught me to skate.
But hey, Johnny, just before you go on, your mom is in the building tonight, is she not?
She is. Yes, she is.
Yeah, let's give a shout out to
Kathy.
Kathy.
Yes.
Welcome, Kathy. She's somewhere out there in the capacity crowd. Welcome, Kathy.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's like I said, it was an awesome upbringing, even though I endured the divorce and stuff. But it made me who I am today, and I still have a really good relationship with both my parents, and it's awesome. And my mom's fortunate enough to be able to be here with me. She flew to Saskatchewan to join me, and then we flew here, and we're actually going to be going up to Sudbury to film for a few days, and then we're doing our secret tour to the Bahamas for a couple days. So we're trying to keep it on the down low. So.
Right on. Well, hey, you heard it here first, I guess.
Yeah. So. No, growing up in the reserve was great for me. I'm like you said earlier, I'm a country boy. I had the opportunity to live in California and follow my mom's footsteps, but I've always really loved the wilderness and the hunting and the fishing. And just a couple of weeks ago, I took my nephew from Arizona to we were out on the lake, and he goes, "Uncle, what is that over there?" And it was a cow and a calf, a big moose crossing a lake. So. I actually drove the boat up right beside him. I was thinking I should just jump on that moose and try ride it, but
no way, yeah, a real country.
But then that happened a few years back in British Columbia, and those guys got charged for doing that because they.
Okay.
Yeah, so I said I better not. I'll just shoot it instead.
That's a good decision.
No, but it was a good time. So yeah, like I said, my passion's being on the farm in the country, living off the land, and hunting, fishing, and my little girls are living a life now too. Ride horses every day. I'm sure you follow me on social media, and that's the life. So I really enjoy it, and I always get the opportunity to go visit my mom down in Phoenix and spend the time there, and I love that too. But the bush is really my peaceful place.
Awesome, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, I appreciate you sharing that, brother. I had to mention the hunting, the fishing, and the horses because I've seen so many videos of it. You do it so much now, so I know that was part of a special part of your upbringing. I appreciate you talking about that. So now, you did mention a few moments ago that you think it was actually your mom that got you involved with hockey. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I also know that the legend Gary Mirasty was quite a good hockey player himself.
Yeah.
A very skilled player, as was his son.
Yeah.
For most of your career. Obviously, we have to take on certain roles when we get to the highest levels. But do you mind talking about how it was playing in the area that you grew up in and just being always one of the better players on your team?
Oh, it was awesome. You grew up like any other Canadian kid at a young age, and you want to play in the NHL. You want to be Wayne Gretzky, and so my younger years, I was pretty skilled. I don't like people will make fun of me now when I say that, but it is the truth. I was always one of the better players in the team, and got it recruited to a junior team at a young age, and ended up having my first fight. And I have two older cousins I should throw in there that were both kind of scrappers and in the minor pros, and so of course they're the guys that are home running the camps, and they're lining up fights for me, and I probably shouldn't have been fighting. But
so hold on, who's this?
Leon DeLorme was one of them. You must remember Leon, and then Carlin Nordstrom's another.
Okay, shout out to them.
Yeah, two guys that I kind of you looked up to growing up. So next thing you know, I'm 15 years old. I'm fighting the 20-year-old men, and on the junior teams, and I ended up being pretty good at it. So next thing you know, I was making a team as the enforcer. So
yes,
it was kind of an exciting time.
Awesome, buddy. Thank you for sharing that. So Johnny, okay, I'm very excited for this next part here. Obviously, people that follow you and know your story know that you had a very different path to get to the top level, which you did get to. Yep. Now, I want to talk about how you were recruited to play junior hockey. Now, a little bird told me that part of this was accomplished by actually fighting the missing Link Gates, at the age of 15 years old.
Yeah, it was kind of a weird way I got recruited to junior. I don't go through a junior draft or anything like that. I was actually back home. We had a senior team called the Meadow Lake Stampeders, and they would always play at 8 p.m. and 5 p.m. the AA Bantams or us, we'd be playing, and the senior team, they'd always be short guys. So after I'd play my minor hockey game, they'd come into the dressing room and say, "Hey, can you come play with us now?" And so I played quite a few senior games, and I fought, the missing link. I fought a bunch of older guys when I was 15 years old, and the one that actually comes to mind wasn't Link Gates. It was actually a guy against the Kindersley Clippers senior team. I remember lining up, and I'm 15 years old. I don't think I had hair in my balls yet. Sorry if I don't know if I could say that in line, but
Special guest, Ken.
But I remember this big guy coming up to me and saying, "You want to go, kid?" And I said, "Sure." And he says, but he made fun of me because I had to wear a full cage. And he says, "With that fish bucket or whatever it was," he called me on your head. And so I took my helmet off. I said, "Which one are you talking about?" And I ended up beating the shit out of him. After the game, the guys were all having beers in the dressing room, and Rick Dallin, his name was our goalie. He came up and said, "Hey, Johnny, there's a guy outside that wants to talk to you from the other team." And I remember thinking, "Oh shit, the guy that I just beat up is going to try to beat me up in the hallway now, And so I walk outside, and there's this guy out there. He's actually said, "Hey, I'm a head scout for the Kindersley Junior Clippers." He said, and I've never seen a kid do that before. He said, "What do you think about coming to camp in Kindersley for the junior Clippers?" So sure enough, that spring I was playing with the junior Kindersley Clippers, and I think I fought 14 times or 15 times that weekend. And actually, it was a little Derek Dorsett shifty that I ended up playing with in Syracuse. Was at that time was about 11 years old, and I still have memories of him watching my dad videotape my fights in junior camps. So, and then the rest is history from there. I just went up and kept. Basically used adversity for my fuel to get there, because I was always told I was too small. I'm never going to make it, and I just trying to keep proving people wrong. First I was too small to play junior A, and I was ended up being the toughest guy in the league there. Then I was too small for the Western League. I was too small to go pro, and just keep beating the odds, and that's kind of what pushed me to get where I got.
Absolutely, buddy, and thank you for sharing that very inspiring stuff. To me, like when I hear that kind of stuff, John, I get like pins and needles, buddy. Like, you know what I mean? It's all about believing in yourself, investing in yourself. Yeah. And I know that you're also a big believer in manifesting and imagining what we want. Yeah. And when we do that properly and we're on that narrow path, it usually works out in our favor.
100%. I'm a big believer. The mental part of it's big, right? So, a lot of guys said I was pretty cocky, but when I look back at it, I was, but I had to be, because I was 5'10", fighting guys that were 6'5", 6'6", big guys like yourself. And if I went into a fight saying, "Oh, this guy's going to kick my ass," guess what? He's probably going to kick my ass. So, I had to go around with the attitude that I was untouchable. And now that I look back on it, because even today, some people are sending me some of my old fights, and I was thinking, shit, how did I ever do that? that looks painful, but I wouldn't take it back. If I could do it all over again, I'd probably even do it harder.
Thank you for sharing that, buddy. And it's so true, like everything that you're saying. I really appreciate you saying it right now. So now I wanted to kind of stick on the timeline. This is when you're now in major junior, okay? Yep. There's a viral video of you and Derek Bugard fighting in the WHL, okay? Yeah. So now I've heard like announcers and people say the Boogeyman was like 6'6", 6'7". I thought he was 6'8" or 6'9".
Yeah, I think he was right? More like 6'8", 6'9". He was a big boy, definitely one of the toughest guys to ever do the game. And unfortunately, his circumstances aren't positive there. What happened, but
God bless his soul.
Yeah, but again, was a big man, and he's still talked about him. He'll be talked about for the next 100 years. So it was an honor to be able to fight him.
Right on, and hey, that's unbelievable, man. Now, I wanted to kind of, I know that you had a couple different stints in the ECHL and whatnot. I wanted to kind of jump right into Quebec, because there's a lot of people that are really looking forward to hearing some of these stories. I have a lot to say on this, but what I'm eventually going to get to is that it really was the NHL for tough guys at one point, okay? What I want to talk about first, John, is the recruiting process for the LNAH. I want to hear about what it was for you, because in my opinion, brother, you were the big ticket in the heyday of that league.
Yeah.
You were the game that everybody wanted to see. Any rink that you guys went to, it was pretty much full. Yeah. That's why I say the big ticket, because it was the big ticket. So what was the big ticket guy recruiting process like for the LNAH, man?
It was kind of funny, because I did my first year in the East Coast Hockey League, and I was a big 220-pound tough guy in the coast, and I had a really good year that year in 2003, 2004. And I was actually supposed to sign with the Chicago Blackhawks at that time, and then that's when the 04-05 lockout came out. So, believe it or not, the Chicago was on strike, so then Norfolk Admirals in the American League were their AHL team. So then Norfolk invited me to camp, and they wanted to keep me, but all the NHL guys were in Norfolk, so they said, well, we're going to send you to Greenville. And which was kind of a shitty situation for me because I was already with my girlfriend, my wife now, Janessa, so she was back in Bakersfield. So Norfolk actually traded for my rights and sent me from Bakersfield to Greenville. So I went and played 2 games in Greenville, and I think I actually got a goal a game there when I was there. And but I remember hating it, right? Because I was on the opposite side of the country as my girlfriend at the time, and now my wife. And I wasn't making very much money in the East Coast. It was like $550 a week or whatever it was. And I was thinking, shit, And a team called me from Quebec and said, hey, we drafted you in the first round. And I remember thinking, who the fuck would draft me in the first round? But so anyways, and they said, we'll give you $2,000 a week. So I'm thinking, well, that's 3 times what I'm making here. Yep. And I can bring my girlfriend with me and I can make lots of money. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. But I ended up leaving Greenville after a game, or I think it was 1 or 2 games. And I think it was actually just 1 game. And then ended up going up to Quebec, and I went into the House of Pain my very first game. And I remember walking in there, and, like I said, I was a big guy, 220 pounds, and I looked like a little nugget in there because, I seen Dean Mayran, who's 270 pounds.
Dean the Machine Mayran. Shout out to Dean the Machine.
Dean's a really good friend of mine, and you seen all these guys in there. It's like they're going for war. There's guys taping their wrists, and they're putting Vaseline on their face and spray painting their knuckles. And I remember thinking, what the hell did I get myself into? This probably ain't worth that $2,000 a week. And you could just feel the adversity in there, like the
tension.
The tension. It was like
you can cut the tension.
So sure enough, we get on the ice. It's already sold out. There's not a place. We're in the warm-ups, and all I see is I look up and there's these 2 big guys. It was Ryan Piziak and Patrick Cote.
No way.
And
Piziak and Cote.
And at this time they looked like WWF wrestlers. So I remember they took their jerseys off and they had no shoulder pads on or no nothing on. And I remember going, holy fuck, what a... And Patrick Cote actually came at me and grabbed me, but I lucked out because he was so slippery. He fell over me and he fell, and I started hitting him on the ground. And, but that was my very first game in the LNAH, and I'm thinking, shit, this is a jungle. But put a year later, I was probably the one that was terrorizing that league, looking like the meathead. Sorry,
finish, Johnny.
No, just saying, that's kind of how it went. But then, a year later, I'm the one that's being the big meathead going around hurting guys. But all in all, I think that Quebec was a really good league those years, because like I said, there was an NHL lockout, so you had a lot of guys that probably could have been in the American League and stuff. And I always said there was a lot of big, tough men there. Some of those guys would be toughest guys in the NHL.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So it was an awesome experience, and everywhere I went, whether it was in Quebec or Russia, I mean, guys treated me like gold, and I have nothing bad to say anywhere I played.
Awesome, buddy. I appreciate you sharing that. So I want to stick with this a little bit. So what I want the viewers and listeners to understand, and this is 2 guys that were number 1s in this league. I want to explain a couple things. Every team in this league, Johnny, would you say that 5 would have been the average? 4 would have been the average? The tougher teams would have 5 or 6. The lower teams would have 3 or 4 type of thing. Every fighter was rated 1 through 5. The 1s knew they had to fight the 1s. Yeah. The 2s knew they had to fight the 2s. Everybody was proud of their position because they were looked at as the entertainment of the game. I also just want to point out before I ask you a question, the meaning of le show. So le show is a part of the game that is guaranteed to happen. It could be the beginning of the game. It might be after the first goal. It could be at any part. But the show will happen, and that is when the tough guys step onto the ice. Gentlemen's agreement that if a number 1 and a number 1 come on, it's going down right now.
Yeah.
Is that pretty accurate?
Pretty accurate, yeah. There was, 1, 2, 3s. I remember those. I don't remember the 4s and 5s, but there was always a couple number 1s. There was a number 2.
The Chiefs said 6, 7, and 8.
Yeah, but
the Chiefs said 6, 7, and 8.
I'm sure they did, yeah. So, But yeah, it was a wild time, and it was good, And I said there was that sense of respect there, If a guy that was a number, how you said, a number 3 would come to me, I would kind of laugh and say, "Oh no, you go with one of them," and I'm not going to bang my hands up for you. But it was awesome, and which brings us to our big ride with me and Steve Bosse.
Yeah, no, 100%. So now, before we get into that, buddy, like this. The mindset I just want to finish up with. So because you mentioned that your first game, you could not believe the dynamics and the tension that it was. Okay, so now that was an extreme case, but once in a while those extreme cases are just thrown in there.
Yeah.
That weekend to weekend life is that you're gonna go.
Yeah.
In some ways, it was a little bit, for me, it was a little bit easier than like the AHL when I didn't know. I knew who I was going to fight. Yeah. I knew that it was going to be at this time and this time, because this is when we're going on, so it's happening right now.
Yeah.
In a way, John, I was able, because of my overthinking, to manage a fight in that type of dynamics, as opposed to playing for the Rochester Americans, having 4 games without a fight. Oh my God, am I going to fight this game? God, coaches really want me to fight. I need to get a fight. You know what I mean? Like that anxiety to me was harder than knowing I was going to fight every game.
See, I think for me, like we were talking about earlier, was the kind of bit of the opposite, because in Quebec, we were the show.
Yeah.
No one.
You were the show.
No one gave.
The show.
No one gave a shit about the hockey game that was going to happen. I was like, St. John's playing Sorel, and Steve Bosse and John are going to fight the first shift.
Yes.
So for me,
that's what they're paying the money to see.
I would spend 2 weeks thinking about that, and it was so stressful, and it, probably put all the grays in my hair. So I enjoyed the time where it was like, okay, well, if I have to fight, I'll fight. But I didn't like the thing where we were recognized, and I think that got to my head towards the end there when I was losing those couple fights to Bosse. It was in my head, it was just every time I was like, fuck, all I thought about was fighting, where I'd rather worry about the hockey game, and if the fight happened, it would happen, so. But like I said, all those different battles and all those wars kind of made me who I am today, and I, to this day, still learned a lot from those, so it's good. Yep.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yep. So now, while we're still on it, I just want to point out some pretty cool facts and points that we share.
Yeah.
Now, the LNAH, like you mentioned before, has gotten really good, especially during the lockout years. Some really good players will come through there. What I'm finding now is that a player that is from the Quebec region, Maritimes or Newfoundland, the guys that are eligible, other than guys like us that have played our 100 games, or however they made the rule, those guys will now rather play in the LNAH, where they make the same money that they do in the coast, as opposed to going to some small town in Texas, living with some guy that you might not get along with, not making enough money to have your wife and kids down. Yeah. Guys will now play in the LNAH, be able to live at home, work a regular job, and make the same amount of money by playing the 2 games on the weekend that they would be making in the coast.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you know a lot of guys like this. You played in the league for quite a while.
There was a time where I wanted to leave the Quebec or the American Hockey League to go back in Quebec because I was going to make 3 times as much.
Exactly.
So and
this is on a good contract at Syracuse.
Yeah. So there was those times. No, definitely. I mean, the LNH, it's got its perks. There's definitely some really good hockey, and it seems to be still going. It's kind of tougher now. There's not as much entertainment as it was 10 years ago, but.
Yep. 2 of the big perks was that me and you both played seasons in the LNAH, where the following season we went to an NHL training camp.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want the viewers and listeners to know how dynamic this LNH league is. Yeah. John played in Sorel. The following season, he was in the Columbus Blue Jacks training camp, and actually played preseason NHL games that year.
Yeah.
We got a story that's coming up for that. Myself was the Edmonton Oilers, ladies and gentlemen. I played for the St. Hyacinthe Top Design the next season, went to Edmonton Oilers camp, ended up playing in the AHL with the Rockford Ice Hogs. But both of us being able to do that year, as well as Guillaume Lefebvre. Do you remember him on the Chiefs? Lefebvre, left winger.
Yeah.
He came with me to Edmonton.
Okay.
They actually brought 2 guys from the LNAH to an NHL camp, the Edmonton Oilers. Yeah. Shout out to the Edmonton Oilers. almost made it, boys. You'll get it there next year. Now they lost 2 players, so I don't know if you saw that. They didn't match their signing things.
Oh yeah,
there.
I seen that today. Yeah,
That's right. So now, I needed to point that out. A lot of people wonder about, how good the league is. Oh, it's just fighting. Yes, there is good fighting, but the players are skilled and everybody is very good there, man. I remember playing with some guys that I thought were some of the best players I've ever played with just because they're that skilled.
I have told people in the past, especially that 04-05 year because of that lockout, I think in the top 2 teams I thought were the Sorel Mission at that time, and was it the St. John Chiefs or was it the...
It was the St. John Chiefs, yeah.
And those 2 teams, I think, were probably better than any American League team. Your 4th line was made up of 3 legit heavyweights. Your 3rd line were all middleweight grinders that probably played in the American League already. And then your top 2 lines were guys that played in the NHL, AHL.
Oh, yeah.
So
that
year, I think, with the intimidation factor, I think we would have beat a lot of American League teams of that year, that lockout year. So with the players that were there.
I believe so, buddy, and thank you for sharing that for sure. Yeah. So now we're gonna jump around a little bit because I have a little bit of a surprise for you. Yeah. But what I want to get into now, buddy, is I want to get into the decision that you made when you decided to take the Junior B coaching job. Then you got a call, but I'm gonna let you tell the story.
Yeah, no, it was actually after the year that, I was, I think, 25 or 26 years old, and it was kind of time to, I took a couple beatings from Bosse, and I remember thinking, well, maybe it's time for me to wrap it up. I'm not going anywhere. The LNH is obviously not a league to grow from, which it ended up actually being. But, so I said, okay, I'm going to call her quits. I'm going to go home and coach Junior B hockey on a reserve and tax-free money and enjoy myself and, just kind of be a dad at home and stuff. And so I went, called her quits, and I actually ran the camp. I was actually, I think, 3-0 in the preseason as a coach. And, and then I got a phone call from the Columbus Blue Jackets wanting me to come to camp. And, right there, it really made me change my mind. Probably could have been in better shape, because like I said, I was done and I got the call in August. But, it was kind of my path to get in my first exhibition game in the NHL. So it was pretty cool.
Right on.
A very unique way to make it, I guess.
It's incredibly unique. So now, part of this that I kind of wanted to get into was about the support that we have from our families when we make these decisions. I've had the honor and opportunity to have you and your father, Gary Mirasty, on an episode of the Sheriff Podcast. It was a Father's Day special, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to check it out, it's on wherever you find your podcasts. Gary, I read, was a big factor in that decision because what I read, and I'm sure you can tell me, is that it was always the goal in your family for you to play at the highest levels. Didn't necessarily have to be so much about the money, but to play at the highest levels. Growing up on the reserve, I mean, that's the main goal, is to make it to the top, like you said in the beginning of the show. Yeah. So, am I right? Was Gary a big contributor in that decision?
Definitely. I think in my family in general, both my mom and my dad, I'm still doing it. I'm always trying to aim for the top. Whether it be hockey or sports, you just want to, you always want to reach for the top. And what they say, shoot for the stars, you'll land on the moon. But just to have that push and that drive. And I think a big thing for me was because I had a young son at a young age, and that was the hardest part, was being away, being in the States playing hockey, or being in Quebec and playing hockey, and being away from my young boys. So, but he sure turned into be a good man now, and he's actually one of my line mates in senior hockey back home. So it was all worth it. Yeah.
Right on. Yeah. Part of hockey is, we always hear the term, it's a small world. The hockey world is so small. The hockey world is so small. Well, within that small world, sometimes it's good to be getting referrals, especially if you have good relations with people. So, I also had read that, Brandon Sugden was the player that was in Syracuse before you were. You pretty much took over for Sugar.
Yep.
I also read that Sugar gave a pretty good referral that they were. You want to tell the story?
Yeah, no, definitely. The owner in Syracuse was asking Sugden, because Sugden was definitely a really tough guy. I mean, you knew more of him about me than I did at that time in the American League. And I think his time was up, and he kind of went up to the Quebec League, and was kind of his tenure in the AHL was over. And I remember him getting called from Howard Dolgan, who was the owner in Syracuse, who loved Sugden, and he just said, who's the toughest younger guy up in Quebec that can come down in the American League and possibly play? And he didn't take him a second to think. He said, definitely John Mirasty. So that's kind of, thanks to Sugar Sugden is how I got into the Syracuse system. So it was good. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Shout out to Brandon Sugden. That's pretty cool stuff, man. It's pretty interesting how like the AHL LNAH connection. I'm sure you remember Yuri Moshevsky. Do you remember that guy?
Yeah.
Big boat, my complexion, even a bigger bald head, even shinier than mine.
Yeah, I remember.
And he was he came straight from the Manitoba Moose.
Yeah.
I remember he was playing for the Manitoba Moose. We had the same agent, Mike Welcome. Shout out to Mike Welcome.
I think I was the one that fought him his first game there.
No way. So Moshevsky. Moshevsky. So that was the first game. He was there.
I think it might have been, but I remember I fought
Probably.
him. He was kind of new there, so I went after him and I welcomed him to the league.
Right on, man. So this is cool. We're gonna welcome to the league. Welcome to the league.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
Now we're gonna get into some of these players now that we're kind of on the topic still. So I wanted to talk about 3 players in particular. The first guy, this is pretty much the viewers telling me what they want to hear, what our opinions on them. They call him, in French I'll say it first, l'animal. The animal, Joel Theriault.
Joel Theriault.
Like, when was the first time you had an encounter with Theriault, man? And like, if you can, try to explain, like the mental state of someone that has to face off against a human being like Joel Theriault.
I think I fought pretty much every tough guy alive. And I think Joel Theriault is probably the scariest man that up to this day I was still scared to fight. And I don't get scared to fight ever. And he was the guy that put fear in me. Even if I could beat him, and I know I beat him a couple fights, that I was still scared shitless.
Okay, but let me give some of the reasons why
I remember one time I had beat him and I cut him all over the face, but I was like a little woodpecker, and I'd hit him and he'd miss me and I'd hit him. And I remember he was all cut up and bloody, and I didn't have a mark on me, and I remember him grabbing me and almost lifting me off my feet because he was so frustrated. He was shaking me. So, and I remember his eyes. I remember thinking, this guy's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, Joel Theriault was probably the toughest and meanest guy I knew. I mean, his eyes turned red.
Yes. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. But I gotta say, I talked to him now in these older years, and very nice, humble man.
Oh, very nice person.
Yeah. So
now, but just to give a little bit more insight, you're saying that there was the fear. Now, was the fear because you didn't know if Joel was gonna cross-check you in the face? You didn't know if he was gonna tomahawk you? You didn't know if he was just going to soccer you when you weren't looking? He was the toughest man ever.
Yeah.
But he could not control his emotions sometimes.
Well,
and to me, that's why I was fearful of him.
You took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay.
You didn't know what he was going to do. It wasn't that I was scared to fight him with his fist.
Yeah,
I didn't know if
you didn't know what he was going to do.
Yeah,
and then if you go down, God bless you,
Yeah.
because
You're still gonna
he
get-
might hit you a couple more times.
Yeah, for
and it's
sure.
going to be hard if your head's on the
But
ice.
then you look back at it, we wouldn't be talking about it if he didn't do that. So he put fear into us, and
That's right.
That was kind of our job. So,
All right.
kudos to him.
So, the next person I would like to talk about is very popular player. You had incredible rivalry with him. You guys both ended up going into mixed martial arts. Steve the Boss Bosse. Now, what I want to discuss with Bosse is I want to talk about the fight that you guys had in Sorel Tracy. I think it might have been round 5 or 6. The biggest ticket, John. The biggest ticket possible in that province. I'm telling anyone that's listening to this. I was there. My team came to your guys' games. That's how important and special this thing was.
Yeah.
The rink was so full. Standing room was 12, 13 people. You had to fight to get to the rails so that you could see the ice.
Yeah.
When you and Bosse were playing, when it was Chiefs against Sorel, the two biggest, I would say, biggest payrolls, biggest everything.
Yeah.
You guys were the real deal, man. This fight that you guys had in Sorel, I believe it's one of the more televised hockey fights in history.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you guys are into the hundreds of thousands of views. Okay, wow. This is a fight where you guys had a build up to this, where Bosse maybe might have had the momentum. Yeah. What I want to talk about, John, what was going through your mind to prepare for that fight where you dropped him twice down to his knee, and it's the most viewed hockey fight, I think, other than you and your boy Jablonski, in history.
Yeah, that was a tough one, and I mean, I just think I had that fight sent to me today. but
everybody's seen it.
Yeah, no, it was one. But I remember that's another thing. Like, I'm a guy that believes in overcoming adversity, and I mean, obviously, he had my number at that time. And I remember thinking, mental thing's a big part of it. And I remember thinking, I'm going to hurt this fucking guy. So I don't think I slept for 3 days. I remember I stretched. I didn't talk to a single guy that night. And in warm-ups, I looked at him and I said, we're fucking going. And I remember I told the coach, I said, you start me and we're fighting. And yeah, I remember.
Tell me about the arena. How many people were in there? How big was it? Standing room, 13 rows, like it was for the game before.
It was
the game before I was at.
Yeah, it was packed. I mean, it plays a big mental part on you too, because everyone's there to see that, and that there's a good chance you can get knocked out or get hurt. And but at the end of the day, I think that was a really good fight, and it was kind of. I usually think that I won that fight. I think
you won the fight.
You could probably call it.
You won the fight, John.
But,
you won that fight. You won that fight.
It was something that you want to redeem yourself, right? Because I always thought if I get beat, everyone gets beat. I don't care who you are, but as long as you could come back and redeem yourself, and that was kind of my redemption fight. To come back and say, well, I remember guys were calling me. I even had guys in the NHL messaging me and saying, well, fight him smart. Don't go toe to toe. Because I know that I was a better skater, stronger on my feet.
Yep.
I could have easily wrestled and grappled and tied up. And,
better at lefts? You were better at lefts?
I could have been more technical, but I was too, is it the word arrogant, or I was too stubborn?
Yeah.
I wanted to grab him right here, and I wanted to say, let's fucking go.
Right down the middle.
And that's exactly what happened, and I ended up landing the better shots that night, but I remember going into the dressing room, and I was cut open. He was cut open really bad.
He was cut very bad, buddy.
And I remember thinking, I'm going back out there. I'm not going to go to the hospital and get stitched, because we needed to go get stitches, right? And I said, fuck this, I'll get stitches after. So I made them clean my jersey up, and I remember walking back on the ice, and the entire building stood up, and then he was gone. He was still in the dressing room, and then I remember, because we talked about it just... I can let the bucket out of the trail now, because he's on. I brought him into Shoresy with us this year, but we were laughing about it. And he told me, he says, "Yeah, I was sitting in the dressing room ready to go home, and someone come and said, you're back up. Mirasty's back out there." So I said, "Well, so he had to come back out there too." So first I was trying to leave, and I said, "No, I'm coming back." And so we came back, and I don't think we played another shift. I don't think we could have. We were too beat up, but and then. We actually used that fight this last season on Shoresy. We kind of made a replica of it, and we fought in Quebec versus the Sudbury Blueberry Bulldogs in the finals. And so we kind of copied that fight in the show. So it was pretty neat, and to be able to come back and talk about it. So as we were speaking earlier, I remember me and Bosse this winter while we were filming, we were saying, let's go to Quebec and sign together, and we'll play together, and we'll terrorize the league. And we were all cocky, having drinks at the Keg Steakhouse. And the next day we had to go film, and we were only fake fighting. And after the fight, I'm like, fuck, I got to go home and sleep. I'm too sore. and that was a fake fight, right? So it just goes to show you how much effort and muscle and training goes into fighting when we were in our prime. And I couldn't do it now.
So now, and I hear you. Thanks for sharing that, buddy.
I enjoy watching.
So now, if it wasn't Bosse, it was going to be Sugar, right? You and Sugar, you guys had quite the battle. I believe it was in Saint Jean. One of the games, maybe it was Sorel, but you and Sugar had quite the battle. He's another guy. Do you find that you guys have a little bit of a connection, seeing how he was the man in Syracuse, you took over for him, you had to battle against the team that he was on. You guys were very, you guys are very intertwined. Do you have any Sugden stories?
Definitely. No, Sugar's a good guy. And even when I was in the American League and he wasn't playing him, where he came and visit me in Syracuse, and we had some rumblings in the town. We'd go out and have some good times. But I had a lot of respect for Sugar. He's a tough man, and From what I hear, I wasn't the American League at the time that he was lighting it up, but I heard he was the kingpin and he was knocking guys out the one year, and he was kind of untouchable.
Well, let me tell you, that guy, okay, so Sugar, he came, started a season 1 year in Syracuse where he was about 20 pounds heavier than he was the season before.
Oh.
Everywhere he put on the weight was in the right places.
Yeah.
Bonvi would come into town. Boom, see you later, good night, you're going to sleep. Anybody coming into town, same thing. Yeah. I think he started that year with 9 straight knockouts. Bro.
Wow. Yeah. I hear about it. That's a tough man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very tough. So yeah, man. So pretty much like, I wanna kind of go back to the Syracuse thing since we're on the whole Brandon Sugden and all that. So now you, my friend, when you went to Syracuse, you guys had a record-breaking season.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I believe it was 27 wins in a row that you guys had.
It was something like that, yes.
Now, what I want to kind of get into now is Zenon Konopka, Tom Sestito. Who are some of the other names that were on your goon squad that year?
Derek Dorsett. Well, we were called the Nasty Boys. There was myself, Zenon Konopka, Tom Sestito, Dorsett. So we had middleweights, we had heavyweights, we had agitators. We even had our Derek Brassard trying to fight at center ice in the opening play. I remember that was the year we played Manitoba Moose in the first round, and our team just bought into that tough hockey. I think we led the league in penalty minutes, and I remember off the opening face-off, Derek Brassard, who was a first rounder, I think first overall it could have been, or top 5 anyways, off the opening face-off, throws his gloves off and says, "Let's go," in Manitoba. They didn't fight, but it was just funny that even our best player bought into that style, right?
But he had that confidence because of the Nasty Boys.
Yeah, so we had a good time. We even made a contract with our owner. He had to pay all our fines.
No way.
So I think we made Nasty shirts and hats and stuff and raised money, and that was our fine fund to pay for all the fines that we received.
That's absolutely unreal. So now I want to talk about the inner team meetings that you guys would have and the goals that you would set. I heard some really funny stuff, buddy. I've had the advantage of having a couple shows with you already.
Yeah.
I want to talk about you, Zenon Konopka, and company deciding what you guys were going to do as a team if you won 5 games in a row.
Well, like I said, I think we were in last place at Christmas time, and so we set a thing and said, okay, because back then, in warm-ups, the veterans didn't have to wear their helmets, so the guys would have their hair all done up to look good for the girls and stuff. So it was only usually the tough guys and a couple of the older veteran players that were allowed to do that. But we told all the young guys, we said, okay, let's win 5 games in a row, and if we win 5 games in a row, we're going to let everyone go out on warm-ups with no helmets. So sure enough, we won 5 games in a row. Then we're like, okay, well, what are we going to do next? So we said, okay, well, if we win 10 games in a row, we're going to let everyone go out on the ice for warm-ups with no shoulder pads and no helmets.
Jesus.
And sure enough, we won 10 games in a row. And we were actually on the 11th game.
Wait, hold on, what's going on here?
Sugar!
Oh my God. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Brandon Sugar Sugden's outside. He's knocked on the door. This guy must have heard that we were talking about him or something, maybe?
Right on.
Holy smokes, bud.
So I guess back to the story, we were... so the 11th game, we're in Cleveland, and that's where the Columbus Blue Jackets are. Cleveland's only an hour or two from Columbus, so all the brass, I think Scott Housen was in the building, and we... So the GM called me and Konopka into the room, and they said, we heard that you guys are going to be going out with no helmets and no shoulder pads. And we said, yeah, well, that's what we told him we were going to do, and we're men of our word. And he said, Derek Brassard is 160 pounds soaking wet. If he goes on the ice and falls into the boards and hurts himself, you guys don't do that. You're not going to do that. It's done. So, me being a guy that, wants to try get there one day, I walk out of the dressing room, or the office, and I look at Konopka and I say, well, what are we going to do? And he says, fuck him, we're going to go out there. so we go into warm-ups, and we start seeing, I look up into the press box and I see Scott Housen, all the Columbus brass, kicking things and throwing things, and they ended up keeping us because we ended up winning about 20 more
games. Because you guys kept winning.
Yeah, so
what we were saying about 10 minutes ago about getting that referral from Brandon Sugar Sugden, why don't we let him tell us himself?
Let's get the man in here. Get in here,
Sugar.
Sugar.
Come up. This is a surprise appearance.
How you doing, buddy?
One of the most legendary fighters of all time.
It's nice to see you, man.
This is unbelievable. Hey, so Johnny, but why don't you come in the middle, because you're gonna stay.
Okay.
And we'll give Sugar here. Sugar.
Who's got the biggest head?
Yeah. But what's the next question? Who's the best looking?
That's pretty obvious to see.
There you go. Sugar, I appreciate you coming, buddy. Yeah. I appreciate you coming a lot, man. This is incredible. This is a surprise. This is incredible, man. We were talking about how when Johnny got to Syracuse, how you gave him a referral. Columbus was like, hey, who can we get from that Quebec league that be able to do the job? His nibs right here was said. Do you mind? Do you remember that?
100%. Yeah, Howard Dolgan actually was the main guy there. Yeah, and Howard loved the fighters, just absolutely loved them. And I tell Johnny like nonstop. I said, this is the kind of guy you want on your team. He's going to do anything you want, and he's one of the toughest guys I ever fought, so he's going to be a fan favorite, and that's what he likes. And so every time I talk to Howard, I'm like, Mirasty. So he, yeah.
Right on. So now, thank you for sharing that, buddy. Because I have both of you up here, two Syracuse Crunch legendary fighters. Now, Sugar, when you were there, you were very dominant in the league. I had to play you so many times. We've been over this. It was very, very hard thing to do. I still have nightmares at night about it. This guy's here, and this guy's in Syracuse. He has incredible years. He's a league favorite. The whole, the tomahawk chop and everything. We'll get into that a little bit. But what I want you guys to explain is how incredible that blue-collar fan base is in Syracuse, upstate New York, and how that may have helped you guys play for a team like Syracuse.
You want to go first? You want me to? Blue-collar all the way. They loved the rags to riches story. They loved hard work and especially the fighters. I mean, that team, Rochester too.
Yeah.
They really loved the fighters and stuff. And any fighter there was a fan favorite. They didn't really care much about that's the goal scorers, but I mean the fighters is what they wanted to see, and that's why I touted John so much, because I knew that he would bring that like in spades.
Oh yeah, so, thank you, buddy. That's an incredible answer.
Yeah, I think you said it great. It's a blue-collar town. The people there are just hard-working people. To this day, there's still right. I know they talk about Sugar and myself all the time, and to this day, I still tell people, Syracuse is one of my favorite places to play. I still have friends there. I still have family there. Great city. Great city.
The War. Is it still the War Memorial? They still play there?
Yeah, the old War Memorial. It's kind of fitting that I think they said that wasn't the Slapshot was filmed in there. So it's kind of fitting, and then for me to be one of the three gyms now in Shoresy and to have the old Hanson brothers. I always tell everyone that the gyms would give the Hanson brothers a licking, but it was like you said, it was an awesome place to play. The staff, Howard Dolgan, Jim Shirosi, all those guys. I know they had such good things to say about Brandon and about myself. And to this day, I could still call Jim up and say, "Hey, man, I'm in town, and I'll have anything covered for myself." And I think same goes for Brandon. So it's a great city, and it's always going to hold a place in my heart. That's for sure.
Right on, buddy. Thanks for sharing that. Sugar, I wanted to ask you. So now, when you guys kind of intertwined in that year, where John went to Syracuse, you came to Saint Jean. Weren't you living in Syracuse that season, and you just drive up to Montreal?
I lived in Syracuse for 2 summers.
Right on.
And then I ended up signing with Saint Jean, so I bought a house outside Toronto.
Right
so
on.
I would drive or fly to Montreal 2-3 days a week, and then I come back to. My wife just had a kid, so ex-wife just had a kid. So
right on.
So I go back and forth, but that was how. But I lived there 2 summers in a row. I had all the golf tournaments and the bowling. I was at the Flamingo Bowl there, and it was a good time. I really love Syracuse. Like it's a great family town. It's really like it's got a place in my heart for sure.
Right on. Amen. That's unreal. I spent a couple summers in Rochester as well. Very similar situations. The fan base is so strong. It's almost like it would be silly if we didn't live there some summers, right? Just to keep our confidence up, having a good training group. Usually there's a big group of hockey players that live in the area, upstate New York. Very strong area of the States for hockey. Good all the way. Thumbs up all the way. So now, so here's another question I have for both of you. I remember playing in the LNAH, it must have been the year where it was your first year in Syracuse, your first year in St. Jean. I remember seeing you come to visit and watching, I think it was our game. What did you think of the league when you came back after having to practice every morning, all the routines of the American Hockey League, everything like that, and now you're going back, you were only there a year ago, and you're getting to see what Le Show is again. Was it wild or what?
I think it gave me an erection. No, it's, you know, it gave you that drive. You know, you obviously.
That's the sheriff.
No, you know, once a fighter, always a fighter. I always find, and you see the boys getting ready to go to war, and you know, like I'm coming from the American League where, you know, you might fight once every second or third game, and you know these guys, you know, they're going to be going to war. It's like I want to go to war with them too, and you know, but you're kind of panting. But yeah, I remember it was exciting because I think I have a lot of friends even in the Quebec League, so it was always nice to come back and watch them play and you know, just experience the Les Show.
Les Show is right. So. That's unreal. You know, it's kind of interesting because I'm trying to think of the math in my head, and like we got almost like 1,300 professional hockey fights at the desk right here.
It's a lot of meat.
And so what is? Well, hold on, but there's some more stats though. You, I think, have the most entertaining ratings of all time, the highest. Because you know how they have that fun category?
Oh, yeah.
You, my friend, you have the best winning percentage out of all those people. So I have the pleasure to have the best winning percentage and most entertaining hockey fighters of all time. We're talking NHL, AHL, KHL, LNAH, anything, all time, right here. What are you guys gonna do?
He'll make it entertaining and I'll win.
Like I say, I was watching them. I was watching my fights every once in a while when they sent them to me, and I'm thinking, "Fuck, what was I thinking back then?" I used to tell guys, "Hit me."
So
I wouldn't do that no more.
The first fight we had, oh my lord.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sugar, I was talking about the time where this guy was fighting Bosse, it seemed like every single weekend. So you know what? His owners are probably like, you know what? We need you to do something a little bit different. Go after Sugar. That fight that you guys had, I asked him about it a little bit. Do you mind talking about that? Because did you have a feeling that it might be you that night?
Oh, I knew it was.
Okay, so you knew it was going to be you.
No, I think
okay, so
we had lunch.
Someone just sent me that fight the other day, and it was funny because you were playing defense or something, I think, and Bosse was on the wing, and Bosse was trying to fight me. And I'm like,
and
no.
you shook your head, yeah.
So the Bosse kind of going at you right away, that was all the theater that we did, right? Just so the fans knew that Bosse wanted to still fight you, but this was the big ticket that night. This was Le Show. Le Show that night was you two, man. And boy, did you guys not disappoint.
I think it was RDS too that night, wasn't it? RDS?
Oh, yes. No, it was.
RDS,
The YouTube video I saw, it was definitely a televised game.
Yeah.
And yes, RDS, the French version of TSN. So they had the commentators. They had everything. The commentators were pretty knowledgeable, too.
I still don't understand French, but I don't know what they were saying. Lived
Buddy,
there for 6 years.
How do you live in a place like Sorel Tracy and not speak French? This guy got away with living in the Montreal area. He didn't have to speak French. I was in St. Hyacinthe. Wasn't too bad. Jonquière, about 99.9% Francophone.
I was stubborn, that's what it was.
Right on. All right, man. Well, okay, Sugar, you're staying up here for the rest, buddy. I can't have you leave the desk because it's just too dangerous, okay? So, well, there's a couple more things. We're way over the time limit, but I'm trying to squeeze a couple things in.
Can I say one thing?
Yes, of course, buddy. No, I want you to say everything.
Didn't we have pregame meal before that game?
I think so.
Yeah, I think we had pregame meal
Come on.
together. Yeah, before that game, and they had posters in Saint Jean. It wasn't Mission versus Saint Jean. It was Mirasty versus Sugden.
Oh, okay.
They had them all over the towns. And I still don't want to
I
hang
was
out
telling
with
that
them.
earlier. That's what kind of got to my head all the time. It wasn't always about a hockey game. It was about, so it kind of fucked with your head a little bit.
Yeah. But I think we had pregame meal before that game, so we knew we were going. Like that was 100%. And it was the longest square off I think I've ever had.
It was a long square off.
Tell us about the conversation.
Yeah, what were you guys saying in the square off?
I remember he had a grin like I did. He's just going like this. Come on, and that was always my rule was no, you come to me.
Yeah.
Because my dad always told me that. He says when you rush guys, it's not good because they'll back up and pull you. So this fucker kept going like this, and I kept going like this, and so eventually we just got closer and closer.
Yeah.
So
and we both saw each other's eyes, and we were like, okay, now it's go time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we were talking about what we were gonna go after the game. That was the warm-up.
But before the game, you guys had pre-game meal together, looking at your posters, saying who's gonna go down tonight.
Well, that's the thing about fighters, man. Obviously, he's trying to knock me out. I'm trying to knock him out.
Yep.
Right. But when you fight your friends, it's better to fight your friends, I think, than fighting enemies. Because
I agree.
If he's beating the shit out of me, he's gonna stop. If I'm beating the shit out of him, he's gonna stop.
He won't hit you when you're down.
It's a respect thing. It's a
I
fighter
think
thing.
the beautiful thing about fighting in hockey, for the most part, don't get me wrong, there was guys out there that I hated that I wanted to hurt. But I mean, at the end of the day, well, you want to hurt everybody, even your friends. But what I really respect about the game now is, I wanted to kill him, he wanted to kill me. But if he ever needed me at life after hockey, I'm there for him, and I vice versa.
There you go. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing to hear, man.
So that's what I really like about hockey, because you read all the critics on the news and stuff about they're nothing but savages or animals or beasts, but they don't realize, I know yourself, Sean, you were a man of the community many times, right? Like it was the
I tried to be, yes.
Myself, I was very popular in the community, giving back to the youth, and I think that's not talked about enough for the guys. It's Sugar himself, kids loved us, and we were always the last guy signing autographs. I remember giving the security shit, saying, no, I'll sign these last 10. So that's not talked enough about the tough guys in hockey. They're always trying to make us look like we're savages and beasts, and but at the end of the day, I think we're some of the best human beings out there, and we're a brotherhood. We stick together.
Yeah. Right on, hey man. I couldn't have said that any better. All right, so obviously we can't finish without mentioning Shorzy.
Yeah.
And the reason why, John, is because, like, I'll admit, buddy, I'm very proud of you, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It is incredible what you're doing. Such a big career move, bro. This is gonna open up doors though for so many other things. Shorzy's a show that's not only good, but the director's unbelievable. The cast is unbelievable. I've had half of you guys. I've played with half of you guys. I've had most of you guys on my show. It's such strong characters, man. You must be just having a riot being on this cast.
Oh, it's a great opportunity. Don't get me wrong. I love it. It's an opportunity I never thought I would have got. It's kind of reminds you of going back to the game playing hockey. You get to hang out with the boys in the dressing room every day. You get to go for meals at night. You get to go drink beers. But at the same time, you have a job to do and get it done. So I love it. Jared Kiso is an awesome guy. Lets us basically do our own thing and create to make it like a really live hockey show. And it's just an awesome experience. And that's why I'm in Toronto right now. I've got to leave tonight and drive to Sudbury, Ontario to go film.
I begged you, please do my show before you go back to Shorzy. Please do it, buddy. And you did, and I appreciate it so much, man. Like thank you so much. Right before we go, guys, I got to give a shout out because AJ Galante is a huge supporter of all three of us. Sugar, he loves you, buddy. Yeah. Obviously, this guy played for him and had a relationship with Ice Wars. Yep. Me and AJ get along very, very well. I just quickly wanted to talk about how AJ has developed into an incredible businessman, podcast host, and father, seeing how you have this good relationship with AJ Galante.
Yeah, no, both AJ and Jimmy Galante, were two great men and did a lot for me. And, it kind of started my career off, back in 04, 05 during the lockout year. I played there for a little bit. And great businessmen, and AJ's doing great things, the podcast.
The podcast is incredible with Daniel Amesbury. Check it out, guys.
He's got a very good personality for that, and I think I wish him nothing but the best and success for him.
Yes. Great. Awesome. Sugar, is it weird being up here with two guys that you smashed their face in, buddy?
Not at all, actually. No, it's good. It's
What's
great.
happening in your mind?
It's bringing back old great memories, actually. Especially looking this guy in the eyes. I looked at you in the eyes enough time, but I only fought him twice. So.
It's great to see you guys, and I enjoy you having me.
Awesome, buddy. I mean, I don't want it to end. I want it to keep going. We're way over the limit, though. I appreciate you guys sticking it out for me. Sugar, you coming by here, man, really made my day. This guy, it's such an honor to have him on. I want to thank both of you, okay? Don't hurt me. Don't hurt me. Best percentage, most entertaining. Hey, settle down, settle down. Everything's cool. I want to thank our listeners and viewers for tuning in to another episode of The Sheriff. This was probably one of my favorite events. But before we go, I have a big acknowledgement to make here, guys. Big acknowledgement. First off, Raymond LaRose. Yes, Raymond LaRose is my episode sponsor, who was joined by MC Menor, KZ7. These guys have been there since day one. Raymond plans on opening a youth center in the future. Raymond's been here every single show, has sponsored every single show, and KZ7, MC Menor has been right there behind them. Thank you to both of you for the sponsorship. Big shout out. Check out that YouTube page, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank my listeners and viewers for tuning in to another episode of The Sheriff. We'll see you next time, guys. Woo! Awesome.
It's The Sheriff Podcast, baby.